The equation above represents a parabola in the xy plane. Which of the following equivalent forms of the equation displays the x-intercept of the parabola as constants or coefficients? So parabola is the shape of the graph that we would get if we were to construct it from the equation given to us in the quadratic form. We are offered 4 different answer choices that represent the same equation as at the top, but they look a bit differently. And the task here is for us to identify the one that expresses the x-intercept in the form of constants or coefficients. So let's look at all these 3 terms, x-intercept, constant, and coefficient, before we answer this question. X-intercept is a point on the plane where a line or a curve intersects the x-axis. X-intercept, by definition, has a value for y-coordinate at 0, because if we look at the xy plane, we can see that, for example, in this given point, at the point 4, the dimensions are 4 and 0, 4 representing the measure of the x coordinate and 0 representing the measure of the y coordinate. So every x-intercept, by definition, has a y coordinate of 0. The term coefficient means a value by which a variable is multiplied. So if we look at the answer choice A, we have this term 6x. In this case, 6 is the coefficient that is applied to the variable x. And finally, constant is a standalone number. So looking at the same answer choice A, we have a number -8. And it's just a number that's standing by itself, and it is a constant. So let's go through answer choices one by one and identify the one where the x-intercept is very obvious. And once again, x-intercept is a situation where y equals 0. And that's the point where the line or the curve, in this case it's the curve because we're dealing with parabola, intersects the x-axis. Looking at answer choice A, y minus 8 equals x squared minus 6x. Looking at what we have here, it's not obvious that minus 8 is an x-intercept because it's on the left side. And minus 6, the coefficient, also does not seem to be indicative of where the x-intercept would be. Maybe it is, but for now, let's go past it because it's not obvious to us that it is. Answer choice B has interesting situation. It has x minus 3 squared, which stands for x minus 3 times x minus 3. So minus 3 potentially could be the x-intercept, meaning that, or at least it leads us to conclude that if x were equal to 3, then the y would be equal to 0. But it wouldn't be, because on the left side, alongside y, we also have plus 1. So that kind of ruins that good setup, that the good potential that we saw in the answer choice B. Moving on to the answer choice C, we get x times x minus 6 plus 8. So plus 8 is the constant, and it's not indicative of x-intercept because it's just a number, and y would not equal 0 because of it. And x minus 6, potentially, the minus 6 constant could lead us to conclude that if x were equal to 6, then we would get 0 in the brackets. But then we have plus 8 later, so that would ruin the setup where y would equal to 0. And finally, answer choice D gives us a setup of x minus 2 and x minus 4. since we're looking for the situation where y would equal 0, we can see that the -2 constant leads us to assume that if x were the opposite of that, if it was 2, then the first bracket would give us a 0, and 0 multiplied by the result of the second bracket would lead us to y equals 0. So the -2 is letting us know how we could possibly find the x-intercept. And then we have a second bracket of x minus 4, which could potentially also result in a 0 if we take the opposite of -4 and we use 4 for x. Then the second bracket gives us a 0. And then having 1 0 is enough for us to get y to become a 0. Answer choice D satisfies our requirement of having constants leading us to finding the x-intercept. So our final answer is choice D.